All right, peace to the planet. This is Adisa, the Bishop, chilling. I have Bobby Southworth with me. This is a very special moment because, man, like I've known this dude for my entire jujitsu journey. He was the first person to teach me at the Half Gracie Academy. It was him and Dave Camarillo, and what they represented then and what they represent now um, is they're just cornerstones of a movement that everybody's a part of, but a lot of people don't remember who was there before it was cool. You know what I'm saying? Who was there before uh people could make a lot of money on it, before people could really claim shit. Like who was really just there to learn and grind and be. And one of those main people was Bobby Southworth, who is joining me from San Antonio, Texas. Man, thank you for being on Bishop Chronicles, bro. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Peace to the planet.
Yeah, peace to the
I
planet,
steal,
man.
I
So
steal your catchphrase.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's free use for everybody on that, you know what I'm saying? Um, how are you doing first of all, and happy new year.
Thank you. Same to you. Happy New Year. I'm doing all right. I think all of us are always going to have certain things going on in our lives, but my kids are happy, well fed, housed. I'm doing jujitsu. I'm teaching jujitsu. So, you know,
Yeah.
what could
No,
what
it's beautiful.
things could be much worse.
Yeah, hey man, it's crazy, right? Like definitely times are kind of wild and these are weird times financially, all kind of different ways, but they can be worse and it's important to have that kind of gratitude to, you know what I mean, to just keep grinding. Now, you, for those that don't know, I want you to introduce yourself because I have questions, but I consider myself an insider, right? I do, just because I was lucky enough to know you and Dave and Half early. Like, tell tell us your bio. What is your bio?
We're probably we'd have to first speak about like jujitsu. So, like everybody, this was like, I don't know, late 90, mid 94, early 95. It's been a long time. So a little bit of it fades. But
Right.
I had a friend, there was this kid, his name was Conti Leung, and I knew him. He was an immigrant from China. His parents came over here and we were friends, and I met him in high school. I was a grade or two ahead of him, but he lived near me, and he
What
lived
city?
near.
What city?
This is when I lived in Santa Cruz. Actually, we went to
Okay.
this a small school in Santa Cruz called Soquel High School,
Okay.
and he actually lived literally almost across the street from this place where I used to play basketball. It was because before jujitsu, that was my first thing. My love was basketball.
Right.
And I would always go by and I would see him. He was be doing kung fu moves in his backyard, and I never was a trained martial arts or anything, and I would just ask him questions, and he would say, "Well, if you want to do a kick, this is how you practice it," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I mean, I never really did it because I
Right. Right.
was I was into basketball, but
Right.
years went by. Like I graduated high school, I went on. I went to college, played basketball in college, and then I came back and was living back in my hometown of Santa Cruz. And I was just driving the cliffs one day, checking out the waves, trying to figure out, do I want to surf at the point? Do I want to surf at the hook? Maybe I want to surf at 26th Avenue. There wasn't really a swell, so I was just trying to see where there was a possibility of getting the best ride. And I was
Right.
just driving by, and somebody yelled my name, and I heard it through the window, and I stopped. I pulled in, and it was Conti. And this dude was a hustler. Like eventually he had, I don't know, he has like 7 restaurants, and he's like a property investor.
He's doing it.
He was doing it. Yeah. Already back then, this was 30 years ago. Um,
And
and he had this rental property. He was renovating this rental property. He's like, I want to show you something. And so obviously I went in and he showed me the first UFC 1 and UFC 2. So this was like maybe, I don't know, 8 months or so before, or maybe a year before the third UFC came out.
okay.
Anyways, we went in. Obviously, everybody's seen those. I watched who's gonna win. He's asking me who's gonna win. Oh man, the karate guy's gonna kick him in the head. He gets choked out. Get this. This guy's gonna win. The ninja guy's gonna win.
Yeah, he's
And
gonna
then, and everybody, all the dudes that we thought were badass from the movies were
are
getting their
folded.
asses whipped. They're getting just choked out, laid out. You know what I mean? They're getting beat by street fighters that know a little bit of karate. Anyways,
Absolutely.
you see both of them, and Hoist Gracie comes out on top, and he was like, man, I got this guy. I met this Brazilian guy, and he's coming up to teach. And
Yeah.
so this at the time I was working up in Oakland, but I had a daughter, so I was coming back to town every weekend to spend time with my daughter. And so Conti told me, and I went. I took my first jujitsu class, and even the guy that I took my first class from kind of became pretty well known of the Brazilians in jujitsu. His name was Marco Albuquerque, and they called him Jararaca. And a lot of he was like a dude. He was one of those guys that he got on the plane to the U.S. and Brazil as like a blue belt, and he got off the plane like as a purple belt, or you know what I mean? That's all in the past, but
No,
like
I know. A lot of
I mean
dudes
that
used to
was
do that.
huge
That
back
was
then.
that was the thing. That
But
was
that
the
was
thing,
a blue belt even back then in the '90s was huge, let alone a Brazilian blue belt or a Brazilian
dude.
purple belt.
Dude, if
You
you
know
were a
what I mean?
Brazilian purple belt, you were a walking threat.
Yeah. And so I did my first class there, and I just fell in love with jujitsu. Um, and that's pretty much where it started. So I was working at night. So I was getting off at like 1 in the morning. I was starting work at 1 in the morning, getting off like at 9 in the morning.
Right.
So I took my first class, and so I adjusted my schedule. I started going to work earlier so I could get off earlier so I could actually drive to Santa Cruz. They had 2 morning sessions, and so I would drive to Santa Cruz and take those morning sessions. And then I would drive back to Oakland and sleep and go to work.
Wow.
Yeah. So that went on for like maybe the first week. And then Conti hurt me. Like I threw a triangle up on him, and he did that I'm going to run over your head stack to defend it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to defend. I held on and like popped my ribs out. So I got
Yeah.
all jacked up. So I was laid up for a while.
I can
During
imagine.
that time,
Rib injuries,
yeah, the worst, bro.
never cool.
Yeah.
Never cool.
And so during that time, Caesar Gracie came down to do a seminar. And so Marco wanted to go to that seminar. And so he took, I was one of his students. So I was kind of like tagging along with him. And I found out that Caesar was right over there. And I'm pretty sure he's still in the same spot, like right there in the Walnut Creek Concord area.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So rather
Yeah.
than driving an hour and a half through traffic, his
You
place
were
was
up
like
there
20 minutes, 25 minutes through the tunnel.
for sure.
So I went to Caesars, took my first class, and I knew a little bit of jujitsu, right? I'd only trained for a week and a half, but I was taking 2 classes in the morning, so almost 3 hours of jujitsu. So I knew how to upa, I knew how to elbow,
Right.
I knew how to side
You
control
knew what the
states.
guard was.
I
Right.
knew some sweeps. I knew how to scissor sweep. I knew the choke. I knew the arm bar. I knew some stuff. So I
Right.
went into his gym, and I did okay. I mean, I did so good that he put this 360-pound dude named, they called him E-frame, and like I was able to escape his side control to guard one time before he passed again and just laid on me and suffocated me. And so Caesar was like, "Oh man, you want to train here? You did pretty good, and I
Yeah.
think you'll do well with jujitsu." And it was expensive to train back then, bro.
People don't remember,
People
bro.
don't even remember. So it was crazy to train at Caesars at that time. I want to train one time a week, one class a week. I think it was 150 a month. 2 times a week was 200. Three
Yeah.
times a week was 250. Unlimited was like $300 a month.
That was a
And so
lot of money, dog, in those
that's a lot
times.
of money now. Yeah, but I mean, back then it was. I mean, when the American dollar was worth more, right? It was a lot of money.
For
So,
sure.
but I was working. I had a new kid, and I asked Caesar. I was like, I have money, but I don't really have enough money to train as much as I want. And so he made me a deal. He was like, some jujitsu. So what you're going to do I won't charge you to train, but I need you to show up in the morning to be the Yuki for the private lessons. And
Okay.
then, so what I was doing, and the other guy that was doing that was Kurt Osiander. So Kurt
Yeah.
Osiander their main assistant instructor, and he was already a blue belt. I was still a brand new white belt. So I was showing up in the morning, man, and Caesar, he had like a racket going, man. I would come in and there'd be a private at 8 o'clock and then a private at 8:10, 30-minute privates. So he would have Kurt helping with one guy and me helping with the other guy. He'd like show the move,
Ooh, I see.
right? And then he would leave us there to help them with moves. And they were moves. Obviously, these guys didn't know these moves, but we did, so we could help, we could assist.
Yeah. Put your knee
Then he
here,
would
turn like that, whatever.
exactly, and this is where your hand goes.
Yeah.
We could help them. And then he had guys come in. So the 8 o'clock guy would get done. A guy would come in at 8:30. He had an eight. So, and he's charging these guys like 80, $75 for half an hour or something like that. So
Yeah.
he's between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock when group class started, he's servicing like 8 people. You know
Oh,
what I'm
that's
saying?
awesome.
Like yeah, he was ball. He had it down. He had the system down. So, anyways, I was there. It was me and Kurt helping with the guys, training in the group classes. I'm trying, like you said, I'm just trying to not get murdered in here. I wasn't as big as I am now, but there were 150-pound dudes, 160
Yeah.
pound dudes that were all
Yeah.
over me, right? Choking me, armbarring me.
Yeah.
I learned. I was a quick learner, and I was an athlete, so I started. I rose through the ranks, and
No
then
doubt.
he brought Half, and so Half came from. I don't know if he brought Half or Half came. I don't know how that worked
Yeah,
out, but
yeah. But
Half
he
came
came
to
to
the
see. Yeah,
academy,
yeah.
and they started the Gracie systems. Their little
Right.
Gracie
I
systems. That's
remember
how it
that.
was
I still
originally.
got some of them tapes.
So Half came up, and like he kind of took me under his wing, right? And so I was still doing the same thing, but then when Half he said, I'm gonna go to Mountain View and I'm gonna open up this academy. Do you want to come down there and help me? And so Mountain View is like, you
So
know,
far.
it's not, no, but it's closer to my hometown of Santa Cruz.
That's
It was
true.
much
Yeah,
closer
yeah.
to my hometown, and so my daughter lived there. So basically, I was able to move back and commute from Santa Cruz. And so, kind of, I don't want to say the rest is history, but I moved down there with Half, and I was actually there doing the stuff that I was doing for Half, started helping with the privates, starting the group classes, running the group classes because Half was living up in Dublin and he was having to drive down from there.
Drive down all the time.
Yeah, so
When I first came and I called, you answered the phone. I mean, like, I called you. This would have been like 1997. I called,
wow.
you answered, and I was like, "Hey, my name is Adisa. I want to try jujitsu." And you were like, "Do you have a gi?" And I was like, "No." And you said, "Go to Japantown and get a gi." And
Oh, that's right. You could
and
go
you,
to you could go to, what was that store called? Ichibe Busan, right?
yeah,
That's what it was
exactly.
called.
So
Ichibe
I go over
Busan.
there and I'm just like, this guy said I need a gi. And they gave me this classic, but it had like the bell bottom arms. Like for a
Yeah,
jujitsu
yeah.
guy,
That's how the guys don't remember that. They don't remember when it was like you're wearing like pantalones on your arms and or
bro,
bell
it
bottoms
was
on your arms and
great.
bell bottoms on your legs, right?
So I walk in with this extra big ass gi for no reason.
And they
And
were brown. Remember, they didn't even have the bleach geese. They were the
yeah,
grayish geese.
they were that off-white eggshelly kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And and you know the way that I don't remember, you and Dave were there. Half was not there on that first day. You guys ran the class and I was no kind of athlete. I was just a guy that wanted to learn. So
yeah.
like that
That
night,
doesn't that doesn't matter though. That's what a lot of people don't realize in jujitsu is, especially in the beginning, like when guys come in and they're doing well in jujitsu, they're guys that they wrestled, they
yeah,
did judo, they have some kind of martial arts experience. You know what I mean? For everybody else, the average person, like I was athletic, but I didn't. These little unathletic looking dudes, like, oh, I'm gonna steamroll this dude. And the
falling,
next guy, I'm
yeah.
like, and they're tapping me out left and right. You know what I mean? And so it's all about, like you said it the best, man. It's not about, it's who's left. It's like, can you persevere enough?
Yeah, dude. And you know what made me persevere though? So that night I went home, swear to God, bro. When I would move in my sleep, I would wake up. I was that sore, right? But the thing is like in the beginning, I would say they really kicked my ass. But what I realized over time was I was just unfit. My body never had to do full head to toe output like that before.
Right.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
was a, I was a college athlete and I still was playing basketball like regularly, like as my thing. And
Yeah.
I try to tell this to even the people that come in now. Like, I'm like, it doesn't matter if you can run a marathon. This is a completely different kind of conditioning. It's it's all about the relaxation. You can be as fit
Dude.
as you want, but your own terror. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm getting suffocated. I can't get this woman, this 125-pound girl off of me. You know what I mean? And the terror
Dude.
of that is what's exhausting everybody, right?
That's real. He said your own terror. That's really what it is.
It's
So like
fear,
I remember waking up about the third or fourth time in the night and I looked up. Now, footnote, I had learned off of videotapes in like 1990 before UFC, like 92 or something, like late 91. So I had some of the Horian tapes through my friend Jamie LePena.
okay?
We used to go over moves. But what happened to me inside that fucking gym in Mountain View was so much more crazy.
Well, and it was a different time though. There was no oh come in intro class. Today you're gonna learn how to shrimp and break fall. It was like,
No, dog.
okay, this is how you do the UPA, this is how you pass the guard. And then it was like, now
On.
you're now you're
Here's
now
now you
you're
fight.
you're
And
the you're the sheep
and I
being fed to the
remember
wolves.
I woke up like the third or fourth time in the night and I looked up at the ceiling and I was like, this shit really hurts. I was like, maybe this shit is not for you, bro. You need to reset. And I was like, all right. I was like, here's what you're gonna do. I said, you're gonna go back, and if it feels exactly like this, you can quit. But if you can survive that second or third time, you need to stay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what kept me going was how magical it felt to observe jujitsu. Like someone has you in a headlock, you go here, 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 you're out. Oh, someone bear hugs you, they try to pick you up, you do that, touch the ground, grab the leg, turn, and I was like I didn't care that I was getting murdered, because to see it was just mind blowing, and I was more in love with the learning and just accepting I sucked.
And
Yeah.
that was one of the things that I what the beauty of jujitsu, like you were just describing, is as a basketball player, I was a point guard, right? And I try to explain this to people that there's certain ways that people have to organize their brain, not just to learn jujitsu, but to deal with the tempo of the reactions. It's like as a
Yeah.
basketball player, when you bring the ball down the court, right? As soon as the ball is passed, there are going to be five offensive options, right? So the
Mhm.
ball goes over here, he has a shot. If he doesn't, I screen away, right? He's the first option. The guy coming off of my screen is the second option.
Yeah.
There's the guy who screens away in the post coming off, and then the guy coming back. And that's how jujitsu is. Like you were saying, it's like the guy has you in this position, and you're going to do this to escape, and maybe that works. But if it doesn't, here's this option,
Right.
and then that works. But
Exactly.
if that doesn't work, then there's this option, and there's this it's this beauty. I don't know. It's like chess. There's always a move and a counter move. There's a key to every
And
lock.
it's just so fun, right? And sometimes it's not even whether you know the move, but can you do it? You
Can
know
you
the move, but you can't do it, right? Or you know the move and you kind of can do it, but you're doing it just wrong enough.
just one little detail and then everything falls apart, right? And then you're getting choked yourself, right? It's like you're trying to choke the guy, and you're so happy that you're almost choking him that you don't realize he's past your guard, and just
Yeah,
now
or he
when you're
slipped
still
away
holding
from
his
under
head,
you. Yeah.
and now he's taking your arm. You know what I mean? And so it's like
It was crazy. It
it
was
was
such a
crazy.
beautiful thing, man. And it's funny because, you know, I was having fun and I knew jujitsu was a big deal. I knew it worked. I had no questions because I had seen all the early Gracie in action one and twos. There wasn't no UFC at that time. So I already knew it worked. Um, but I didn't think that those years would be as historic as they were. I didn't think that that spot on El Camino in Mountain View would be such a launch pad of jujitsu as a sport, but specifically for so many people. Like I remember seeing when BJ Penn first came in. He
Yep.
came in with Tom Callos, and I remember
Yep.
Dave stack passing him hella hard because I've been stack passed by Dave before, so I knew that that shit hurt. And he stopped in the middle of the pass, and like BJ was completely folded in half, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And BJ was like, "Mm-hmm." And I said, "I don't know who that guy is, but he's a savage." And I also couldn't pay attention to I didn't pay enough attention to his accent. And so my theory at the time was when I looked at him from far away, because I was, remember how the front door used to be? I was kind of sitting by the front
Yep.
door, and he was kind of on the far end of the mats with Dave near where the bathrooms were, right? And I remember I could kind of hear him talk a little bit, and I was like, oh shit, that dude's from India. I said, these dudes that know yoga done figured out jujitsu, and now they're gonna come over and learn this shit and start fucking people up. Because he
Yeah.
was so foldable. He was
His
so
flexibility
flexible
was
and he was
crazy.
strong as shit. And so
Yeah.
it was crazy. And so to be there for that, to be there with you, to be there with Dave, when Cameron Earl was tearing motherfuckers up, and just to be around that energy meant all of you guys and I'm not kidding, you made me a better man. Half was at the helm of that. He was teaching all of us, but you, Dave, BJ, JD Penn
Yep.
was a fucking savage, bro.
Yep.
He kind of took me under his wing and would show me shit. Alex Oxendine.
There was a lot of people that, and even before Half and Caesar split, the Gracie system, like they like launched so many people, like the Diaz brothers, the whole scrap pack, the Diaz brothers, Jake Shields, Dave Terrell, right? All those before.
Lloyd Irvin.
Yep, Lloyd. That's right.
Bro,
Because when Half went back east to do his little the tapes that he made, Lloyd Irvin was. I
but
didn't
Lloyd
even know
Irvin was
that
the
until
ticket.
later.
People forget, bro. You'll see him with that Omega brand on his arm doing stuff with Half back in the day. And
Yeah.
it's like I remember having those tapes like, holy shit. You know what I mean? Like, who's that dude? And I mean, like, the launch was crazy. Let me ask you, like, I'll just say some names and I want you to kind of just tell me what it was like when you first met him and what you remember about training with him. Like Kurt Osiander. Like I didn't realize he was a blue at Caesars when you met him. Like, because I didn't meet him until he was a purple and he had come back from like Sao Paulo. He was out in Sao Paulo and
Oh wow.
he had come back to Mountain View and he was purple. And he took me under his wing, thank God. But like, what was it like to first meet Kurt and what do you remember about some of those sessions? Just random things.
Well, the first time that I actually met Kurt, he had been like on a little bit of a hiatus from the academy. So like Caesar actually took me and we were driving around Concord and we pulled into this driveway and went back and like we like got Kurt from, I guess he was like hungover or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He'd
yeah.
been partying, so we went and we got him. We took him. We all went to this cafe and we had breakfast and he had coffee and everything. And
Lots of water and coffee to get this
Caesar
guy
was
on
trying to
deck.
motivate him to get back to the gym. And so the first time I trained with him, he was just annihilating me. He had
Yeah,
so much more knowledge than I did at that point. But like you said, he was free with it. You know what I mean? He
yeah.
almost went to the point was like willing to help people to the point where Caesar would be like, hey, like that's
That's
enough.
enough,
Because you know what
dog.
I mean? Because it's like these guys are gonna buy privates. You're showing them all the good stuff. You know what I mean? All Caesar's doing is seeing his dollar signs get broken. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And but
yeah.
I get that from a business perspective. But Kurt was I always loved Kurt. You know what I mean? He
No,
helped me with
yeah, straight
jujitsu
up,
so
man.
much,
That guy, bro.
and
Like,
he's a legend now in
I
jujitsu.
have to give him so much credit. Like, he gave me the best advice that I've never forgotten. I was doing an armbar on somebody, still a white belt, still sucked, and I was doing an armbar and I totally botched it. And I remember he stopped me and he was like, "Hey, bro, listen. Um, you keep trying to move like Half, and you can't. You know why you can't?" I was like, why? He goes, because you're 6 feet tall, bro. Your legs are long. You got a totally different body. Okay. He was like, so from now on, I want you to focus on this. And I don't remember the detail, but after that, like I had gotten arm bars before, but he was like, I want you to think about your body type and understand that different body types make the way that you do your jujitsu different. And I was like, okay. You know what I'm saying? And I
Right.
started like after that, like when like Carlos Bajeto and those guys first started like rising up, I would pay attention to the tall dudes, right? And I would say, how does that tall dude shoot? How does that tall dude throw? Right? And then I would not to like copy them, but pay attention to the patterns of long arm, long limb movement. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And he was so instrumental in so much of my foundational growth. Like I can't even, you know what I mean? Now, when did you meet Dave? Did you meet Dave at Mountain View, or was Dave? I never knew
So I
how.
met Dave. I met Dave first. Him and Dan, their father brought them up to the Concord, or I can't remember if it's Concord or Walnut Creek, but
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
brought them to Caesar's place. And they were judo black belts and everything, and they both were good, but their ground game wasn't quite like the jujitsu level.
Yeah,
You
because
know
it's
what I
still
mean? And
judo-y. It's still
it's
judo-y.
still judo-y, and then you know, not I don't want to say judo-y because American or more modern judo that didn't concentrate so much on the groundwork,
Right.
right? So they knew what a triangle was, they knew what an armbar was, but what one of the things that I think is the superiority of jujitsu as a grappling system is it's like a Google Maps, right? It's a Google
Mm-hmm.
Maps of how to escape from bad positions, get to better
Mm-hmm.
positions, and figure out how to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt that some of us, some of the blue belts, just had better navigation systems than them, but the talent was there. You know what I mean? They were like BJ. They were like, you knew, fuck, in 6 months, this guy's gonna be fucking get up my ass. You know what I mean? It's like you just knew. Um, and so I met them up in the Concord place, and then when Half took me to Mountain View, Dave was still a little bit going up, I think, to train with Caesar. But
Yeah.
then when he came up to decide to go to San Jose State to do judo at San Jose State,
Because
that
San
was
Jose
when,
State's judo thing was crazy.
yeah. And that was when he moved up. And that's when he came to the Mountain View Academy and started helping there as well.
Like, okay. Just to keep things going. Gumby, Alan Gumby Marcus. Tell me about
Yes.
what you remember about him in the beginning.
um,
Tell
since
me.
I'm not going to say everything since you don't edit, but Gumby came in and it was like he was a different dude. He was he was a little bit different kind of. He came in. Him and Scott Nelson came in, and they were different kind of dudes. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
not, and I don't mean that in a bad
Yeah,
way.
there's no
They were
disrespect.
different, but they were different in the. No, I mean that they were different in the way that they thought different, right? Like, and that's how they started
Mm.
on the mats, and you know what I'm saying? It's like
They
they were
did.
just.
Yo,
I would say they were more like back then we would call them the tech nerds. You know what I mean? They
they
were
were
guys
tech
who
nerd dudes because I think Gumby was still working at some place, and I don't remember what Scotty did at all. Like I just at that phase, like I
I
was
don't.
really cool with Scotty and Gumby, but I didn't know
They were
shit
all
about him
fucking. They were all
except,
living in that fucking warehouse, like 2, 3 blocks down from the
dude,
academy.
the
Remember?
OTM
And
warehouse is its own documentary.
it was before OTM. This was before OTM. So this was just they started training jujitsu and they decided to move in down there, and it was just like
It
it
was
was.
Scotty, Gumby, Do Nothing, Danny Do Nothing,
Yep.
and then it was Lamont.
I
Lamont
don't
was there
remember Lamont. I don't remember him,
too. Okay,
but this
maybe
was a
no,
long time
Lamont came
ago.
later. You're right. Lamont came later. You're right.
Um, but obviously the first thing I thought about Gumby was like, dude, this guy's more flexible than BJ.
It
He was
was
like, he
crazy.
literally was like, what was that? Not like there was the Stretch Armstrong, but
Yeah,
is that what it was in the toy
yeah. It was
called
Stretch
Gumby? It was
Armstrong.
called but there was Stretch Armstrong, but there was a toy called Gumby,
There
like
was
a
a toy
little
Gumby.
foldable,
Yeah,
and that's I think how he got his nickname. I only knew him as Alan
absolutely.
first, but I remember the first time like I think I put him in his armbar in an armbar, and his arm went up like this. And I was like, ah. He's oh no, that's okay. I'm double jointed, and then he just bent his arm back, and I was like I thought I hurt him. You know what I mean? Like his arm actually like went up like
I
this,
know.
and then I let go, and he just bent his arm back, and
Yep.
it
He was like,
wasn't
"I'm
even.
back to it," and you,
Yeah, it was like
dude.
crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it was so weird, like the eclectic humans that showed up in that place, bro. So we talked about BJ a little bit, but tell me your recollections about BJ at that time and JD.
Well, BJ came first, and I remember the first day he came in, like he said he had never trained, but like he had been watching tapes, and even more than watching tapes, he was like training a lot and hard with his brother, and
And
you know how
Tom
they do it,
Callos, who
and
is
yeah, they
who
do.
is who is what's his name?
Keenan, he's Keenan's
Keenan
stepdad.
Cornelius, the stepfather.
Yeah,
Trained
I didn't
BJ
know.
head first.
I didn't even know that and I actually reached out to Tom a couple years ago on Facebook, and I was like, I'm all, do you remember me? I'm all, it's so crazy because I was the one when you first brought BJ to the academy. And then reading this interview by Keenan, and he's talking about Tom Callis, my dad, Tom Callis. Well, actually, he's not my dad, but he's my
Yeah.
stepdad. And I read it twice, and I'm like, wait a minute. I know that name. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, how is that possible that two of the greatest American jiu-jitsu that this guy's is connected to two of the greatest American
Come
jiu-jitsu
on,
players,
bro, to ever do it, dog.
right?
Right?
Crazy,
Yeah. Shout out to Tom
crazy.
Callos, by the way, who will be on Bishop Chronicles soon. We were just exchanging messages like about a month ago. So I'm gonna have him on.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
That
he's
guy's
kind of a martial arts legend out there, and I didn't even know as much. Apparently, he's like a I don't know 15th Dan
yeah,
tai,
dude.
Taekwondo master or multiple martial arts
Yeah, he
black
goes
belts,
he,
and
he goes back with all of the
Dave
yeah,
Kovar, who
so
used to
far in
come.
those guys. Yeah.
He used to come to Caesar's. Dave Kovar used to come to Caesar's place. If you ever have him on there, ask him of the day that we met when Half whooped me in front of everybody at Caesar's because I asked him if we were going to train, and he got all pissed off. I'm like, when are we going to train? And he like, what? You put your fists up to me, and then he just started like full on like
Just
going
going.
at it, and he ended up choking me out. Like, she's all you guys go over there. Don't worry about what's happening over here.
Ha, dude, that I think like one of the things that I trip off um about the growth of jujitsu, and especially in those times, for real, bro, is I don't think, well, I already know. It is hard to convey the different nature of those classes at that time.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
it was rough, bro.
it
Like
was rough.
really
It was literally
rough.
survival of the fittest, and they didn't care because in the jiu-jitsu academies, at least I don't know how it was in Brazil, but in America, it was like, if you can't take this, get the fuck out. We don't want you
Yeah, we
here.
didn't care.
They didn't say that, but that
Yeah, but
was like
that
the
was the
attitude.
energy.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like another guy will come, and eventually we'll weed everybody out, and we'll have a bunch of killers, and our
Yeah, if you're
academy
not
will
strong
be
enough to kick it, hit the bricks. So
yeah.
it's like, like I always tell people, they'll be like, "Damn, you used to be at Half in those days. What was it like?" And I'm like, "It was like getting murdered every day." That's the only thing that happened to me. I was like, BJ Penn's over there, Dan Cameron's over there. There's Bobby and Kurt. What am I doing?
Right.
Like,
It was
you know what I'm saying? But again, I'm in love with the learning, so I realized that that was the cost. The
yeah.
cost is getting your ass kicked until further notice.
And the thing that you probably don't realize is that before, like you saw all those names you just said as guys that were choking you out, doing all these things to you, I was one of those guys paying my dues, right? Before was able to come up and be good enough to be,
Mm,
you know what? We all go
yeah,
through that phase. And that's one of the hard parts. I don't want to say hard parts, but like the guy who asked you what was it like back in house at
yeah,
house, you probably should have told him, well, if you were there, you wouldn't be, right? Because he
dude,
probably couldn't have took that training. You know what I mean?
dude,
Like
I know
90% of
it,
the people
bro.
now, they couldn't take the training back then.
Nah,
And I'm just
man,
like,
it was
you couldn't.
rough, dog. It was rough, and
Yeah.
like, if you couldn't hang, you couldn't hang. Now, let me ask you. I don't remember because do you remember there was this black dude from San Jose State named Brewster? He was hella
Yeah, I
yoked.
remember Brewster. Yeah.
Do you remember? Were you there when him and Dave fought?
Dave armbarred him and
Dave broke
Brewster
his shit. Yeah, when Dave
he
broke his
stood up
shit, were
with
you there
Dave and he
that
was
day?
gonna like, yeah, I wasn't there that day.
So
I might have already been gone because me and Half had a
that was
falling out
close.
at one
Yeah,
point.
that's why I was thinking. I was like, I don't think he was there. So here's the crazy shit. So we know Brewster's coming, and we know Dave and Brewster are supposed. So Brewster, I don't remember his first name, but he was a really big judoka from
Yeah,
San
he was
Jose
somehow connected to San Jose State.
State, and he was yoked, and he was big, and he was very real. So there's no like question about his skill set or
Yeah.
toughness, whatever. But him and David had some words somehow, and it had come down that he was going to come to the academy and roll with Dave, and it was really going to be on. So
Well, not to mention that Dave at the time was probably like a buck 45, a buck 50, and Brewster was at least somewhere between 280 and 320.
he
You know
was
what
he was
he's
a
a big man.
house.
He was a big man.
He was a house. So
Yeah.
so so Cameron Earl, me and Cameron sometimes used to time how to catch the same bus, where he would get on at some point, I would get on another, and we would go to Mountain View together once in a while. So on this particular day, he's like, dude, we gotta go because some guy from San Jose State is gonna be there, and Dave's gonna kick his ass. I gotta watch. And I'm like, oh shit. I was like, cool. Now here's me, newly married, whatever. My now ex-wife, I should have fucking stayed, was like, make sure you leave at whatever time because we've gotta go, do shopping or whatever the fuck. So I'm like, yeah, yeah, sure, sure. And I took a camera and I get there, like, be there on time. It's going down. Man, we get there. Nobody was there. Me, Cam, and like two other people are just sitting there. And the clock goes and it goes. And then Dave shows up and it goes and it goes, and Half has not shown up, and it goes.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I have this camera. It was a 110 camera, those old 110 film cameras and shit. And I was like, this is gonna be some historic shit, right? Because I was already a journalist. I just hadn't really written about jujitsu yet. I was writing
Okay.
mainly about
Okay.
hip hop. So I was like, this shit's gonna be historic. I gotta fucking document it. So I'm waiting, and then I'm looking, and Cam's like, damn, dude, you gotta go, huh? I was like, fuck, I do. I gotta fucking go. And so he was like, you know what? Don't worry about it, man. Like, I don't even think that dude's gonna show. And then I leave, and
And
Bruce
as you were believing he was coming in,
and the bus pulled off. And so the way the legend goes is that Half was there. He said he wanted to go with Half. Half said, yeah, we can go, but first you're gonna go with my blue belt. And then if you survive that, I mean you can go. And him and I don't know what happened on the feet, but at some point they ended up on the ground and Dave immediately went for an arm bar.
yeah,
And it's hard for people to understand, but basically they were on mats. He couldn't figure out, meaning Brewster, this big house of a dude, couldn't figure out how to get out of it. So he started walking off the mat,
the
apparently with
mat.
the intention of lifting it
Yep.
up, his arm up, and banging Dave on the floor. And Half maneuvered himself between the edge of the mat and the door. And then I guess Dave just hipped out to the highest degree and
Yeah.
broke his arm like viciously. And then Cam told me when he got up, he like Brewster was holding his arm and all wounded, like And he said Dave said, "Do you see that sign?" And it was the old, the Half Gracie like wrote the sign on the wall. He goes, "You see that sign? It means not fucking welcome. Get out of here." I was like, oh, but like, but
Was
like,
that the end of Dave at San Jose State Judo as well? Or was
dude,
he
you know
already
what? I never asked him what the repercussions of that were. It had to be.
right?
It had to be,
That's
dude.
too bad. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you can't. I mean, you can't just show up and I don't
Yeah,
even
you
know
can't
because
run
I
from
don't even
people.
know what the beef was. But if you're going to come in and that's how you guys are going to decide it, then
That's what it
that's one
is,
of the
homie.
consequences. Yeah, it is what it is, man. It's
And
like
like it's funny because like those times were really intense and like every once in a while someone would show up and act like they wanted to squab. Every once in a while someone would, like uh think that they had a skill set that was comparable and they never did, bro. They never did. One more I want to ask you about is Cameron Earl. What do you remember of Cameron Earl in those early days?
the
Because he
same
was
thing. He was an extremely. I mean, however it turned out, he was an extremely gifted grappler. He was a tough dude. Like he was one of those dudes when it was time to roll. It was like, fuck, man, I got to go
yeah,
with Cameron. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
he was a very fast learner. Um, shit, I'm trying to remember. I actually was invited one time back in the day. I think it was I was invited to do the Grappler's Quest.
Okay.
And the there I don't know if I remember all the names, but there were like 8 of us in the tournament, and it was me, it was Dave Terrell, it was Cameron Earl, Javier Vasquez, Todd
Damn.
Margolis, this guy named Todd
Todd
Margolis
Margolis was a savage.
from the East Coast, and then there would have been a couple other people, but Dave Terrell ended up beating me. Like he got a takedown and a pass, maybe, or maybe it was just a takedown to side control. But then Cameron basically he lost to Dave, I think, in the final, but he went through like everybody else in the division. He tapped out Javier Vasquez. And Javier was already he was already known.
But he
And
was
I
a
don't even think
vicious
Cameron was
rapper.
a brown. I don't even think Cameron was a brown belt yet. He might have been a brown. He was either a purple or a brown belt. He
I think
wasn't
he
yet a
was
black belt.
purple. There was a magazine. I don't know which one it was. It might have been Grappling because I used to write for some of those mags at the time, and I have somewhere. It might be at my parents' house. There's a grappling mag of that tournament, and you see Cam on the mat with somebody just crushing him.
Yeah.
Um, but people forget that he submitted Marcelo Garcia in his
Yep.
prime twice.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it's hard for people, like you know what I mean. Like that wasn't common.
It's hard. It's hard for me to even. I was like, when I heard about that, I was like, damn. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's
Because Marcelo was tearing up the scene at that point.
yep, yep.
When he was breaking out on the scene and just bodying everybody with that arm drag, you know what I
And
mean? And hopping on the back.
that was right when jiu-jitsu was starting to make its transition to the more modern era, right? And
Yeah.
I think two of the front runners of that would have been Saulo Ribeiro and then
Yeah.
Marcelo Garcia at that time. I'm sure there were other guys. I mean, there was like Compredo, Margarita. There are all these dudes, but those were the names that I remembered the most was Marcelo and Saulo for sure.
Yeah,
And that
man.
was that. Yeah, Cameron was incredibly he was incredibly gifted. You know what I mean? I think he
Yeah.
had wrestled a little bit when he first came to House, and maybe done a little bit of judo, but he was similar to BJ. Like when he came in, he wasn't getting crushed.
He
You know what I
wasn't,
mean? It
bro.
was
No.
like I would in the beginning, I would get the better of him, but he was one of those guys that 6 months into a year, he was like all over me. You know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah. He well, you know what's crazy? You mentioned Dave Terrell. Swear to God, I was with one of the purple belts from Half, John Kelly, and we were at this sushi spot called Kamakura in Los Gatos, literally this weekend, and
oh
Dave
wow.
Terrell just walks in with his family and was just sitting down eating. And I was sitting there like, this is
Was
excellent.
there a tournament in town or something? Or
Dude, I guess his kids wrestle out there or something. You know what I
nice.
mean? And I was so shocked when I saw him. I was just kind of stuttering. And I was trying to explain to John. I was like, no, dude, you don't understand who that is, bro. That fucking guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I went up to him before I left. I was like, hey, bro, you totally don't know me, dog. I was just around. I said when you were giving Cameron Earl fits, and so I just wanted to say what's up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was really cool. But like, I mean, Cameron Earl was a savage. Obviously, Kurt was a savage. We had so many
So
crazy
many.
people. And then when you left the academy, like, where did you go at a time when it was so hard to find schools and what I remember you boxed and you won Golden Gloves, right?
So I went, a friend of mine was telling me about this place called American Kickboxing Academy, and they had a guy who had fought in one of the UFCs. His name was Brian Johnston at the time,
I
and
remember him.
so part of what was going on around the time when I left the academy was like Half was I was supposed to get a fight, and then I kind of put my eggs into this basket. Like I decided, look, this is what I want to do. I want to be a jujitsu instructor, and to really do this. And it was a different time. Like I thought that to be a good jujitsu instructor, you were going to have to fight,
Hmm.
right? All these like now, and I realized after that, like a lot of the guys they never even had to do
They didn't,
MMA or
yeah,
do
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
did
But it's
jujitsu.
understandable at that point. A lot of people that did jujitsu had to fight to establish that they could do it.
And so when Half and I had a falling out, like I went back and trained with one of my friends. He was training at Claudio Franza. His name's Garth Taylor. He's a pretty
Shout out
known
to Garth.
person. Yeah, for sure. He's a one of the best kept secrets of American Jiu-Jitsu. A lot of people don't even know like BJ's the first American to ever win get the black belt, get gold at black belt. But people don't realize that the year after that, that Garth went to the finals of the super heavyweight division, and he didn't win. He got a silver, but that's still a
Dude,
huge accomplishment back then.
unbelievable. Yeah.
And in my opinion, he's probably only the second. BJ, the first American to go to the finals. Garth was probably the second, and
Had to
nobody
be.
remembers that. You know what I'm
No,
saying? And
that's
so
true,
it's
man.
crazy.
That's true.
But I was training back
Shout out to Garth, man.
for
Like again,
sure.
ridiculous.
I'm he's one of my old homies, and I went back and I was training at Claudio's with Garth, and my friend told me about this place, American Kickboxing Academy, and so I went there and went in and talked to Javier, and Javier was, he has a good head on his shoulders, and he realized that jujitsu was going to be something, and I was kind of like explaining to him, what my goals were and like what my
Mm.
skill set was and some of the things that had brought me to his door. And he was like, "Oh, you know what? Why don't you come over here and come back tomorrow and Brian Johnson has a submission grappling class, and why don't you come in here and roll with these guys and let's see what you can do." And so I came back the next day and I fucking tapped all those motherfuckers out. You know what I mean? Like I even tapped out Brian. So it was like, and I wasn't mean. Like I caught his
Right.
arm.
You were
No,
just doing it.
I caught his arm. I mean, he was a big boy. Like he was 6'3",
Yeah.
4,
He had some big
260.
ass shoulders, dog.
Yeah, and I caught his arm, and then I straightened his arm out, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna pull it hard, and he's, oh no, thanks, man. And so that like he was used to everybody trying to rip submissions because
Yeah, that
back in the day, you know, people, and I never was really that way. Like it's like this is just rolling. I'm not gonna try to fuck somebody up. This
yeah.
isn't, you know, it's just practice. And so
Yeah.
he respected that. And then we were talking after, and he's the one who like went to Hobby and said, look, this dude's really good. He knows his shit. Because after we were done, like the guys were asking me, you know, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And I was like, okay, look, you know, and I was giving them some tips, right? And so Brian went to Hav and spoke well of me. And so then I went back. Hav called me back in his office, and he's like, look, Brian had some really good things to say about you, and Brian never has any good things to say about anybody. So I know that your goal is to be a fighter. So this is what we're going to do is, I don't have a jiu-jitsu program here. I want you to, if you'll teach a jiu-jitsu program for me, I'll pay you to do this. We'll teach you striking, and we'll get you going down get you going down the road towards your goals. And so that was how the jiu-jitsu program at American Kickboxing Academy was founded. So I was the first guy to teach jiu-jitsu there.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Are you listening, audience, to the first guy to teach jiu-jitsu at AKA? Are you clear, bro? Are you clear? And this
I
is,
mean, now it's one of the most storied gyms in MMA and has a solid jiu-jitsu program. And so that was in like, I think it was like in late 97, because I remember I fought in Golden Gloves in 98, the first Golden Gloves in 98. And that's early in like February or March. And so I taught there for like, I don't know, like 6 years until about
yeah, you were there for a
2003.
while, dog. No
And then
question.
actually Dave, you know, me and Javier had a falling out over business issues. And
Yeah.
that's how Dave got brought into American Kickboxing Academy. He basically just walked in and took over my program. And like four or five of the guys who were my best students were some of his first black belts. So some of his first black belts.
And then let me ask you, but you ended up getting your black belt from Dave? Who ordered you?
I did. Dave, I got my black belt from Dave, but I also got a black belt from Garth.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was crazy.
That's
like
double danger right there.
So I was still training with the fight team at AKA, but I wasn't allowed to teach there because of, like, me and Hav had a big falling out. Like I walked away. I retired from MMA. I retired from the sport for a little bit over a year. And then Crazy Bob, who was the manager of a lot of the fighters, I was watching the UFCs and seeing all these guys from our gym that I was crushing were winning in the UFC. And so I called Bob. I was like, look, man, all these guys are doing good. I feel like I'm better than them. Can I make another run at it? And he like squared things up with Hav. But one of the conditions coming back was that, you know, no teaching. Right. So I had said something. I couldn't teach jiu-jitsu at the gym or anything like that. I was already setting something up I was teaching somewhere else.
Okay. Yeah.
But when I came back, it had been like a little bit over a year. That was when I walked in the gym and we had our first training session. Everybody's talking about, hey, are you guys going to try out for this, try out for that? And I'm like, what are these guys talking about? And Bob's, there's this show coming out. It's called The Ultimate Fighter. And I'm, what is it? And he's like, he started telling me about it. And I'm, why can't I do it? Can you send in a tape? And he was like, it's already past the thing. They've already done all the things for it. And I was like, fuck that. Give me the address. I'll fucking give me my videos. I'll send my own tape in. He's like, okay. I'll send in the tape for you. And if anybody watches any of the old shows, they talk about it. Like they did their first casting run and got all these guys. They had fighters in there, but the majority of the guys were just, you know, they were like people that thought they were going to go on Road Rules or Keeping Up with the Kardashians or whatever these reality shows were at the time. And there was actually a show where Dana was like talking, so look, this isn't going to work because at the end of this, these guys are going to have to fucking fight. And, you know, and so they went back and started casting fighters. And this was even before I sent my tape in. And then what happened was a lot of guys, they didn't pass the background checks, you know, like they had domestic abuse.
They had real issues. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't about being a criminal. It was more like they didn't want like women beaters, rapists and things like that. You know what I mean? And then guys were getting called out there and failing the drug test, the steroid test, and all that stuff. So a
Mm,
lot of guys got weeded out through all that, and luckily I wasn't one of those guys.
I heard that.
And
The
then
Ultimate Fighter was born. I remember when you were on, I was like, holy shit. What was that like?
crazy, man. It was crazy. It
What
was
year was that for people to remember?
so we started filming that in September of we filmed from September of 2004, I believe, till sometime in November, a week or two into November. I think it was, I don't know about all the previous, but at the first 6 or 7 shows, all those shows were 8 weeks of filming. Ours was like 10 or 11 weeks, I
Yeah.
think. But it was one of the longest filming sessions that they had because nobody
That
knew what
shit
they were
was
doing.
crazy, bro. And when you look what that television show has given birth to, and that you were a major part of it, when you left and you went in to be the first ever Strikeforce light heavyweight champion, like how did that pivot happen? And also, like, obviously coming from Ralph Gracie, when Vernon White hit the scene, I wasn't a fan of his, right? Because I'm like, he's with the Lions Den and fuck that shit.
Exactly.
It's Ralph Gracie Jiu-Jitsu beach. Like that's was my mindset, right?
Yeah.
Nothing against him. That I'm just talking about what my mind was like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was always Shamrock versus Gracie.
Yeah, it
Like
was
that's
like,
how it
well,
always
it's,
was.
it's not good. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, we're not homies. And so, what was it like fighting Vernon White, and what was that match like for you in December of 2006?
I mean, it was crazy because I'm not gonna. I mean, Vernon wasn't the best fighter, but he was definitely a seasoned veteran. Like when I was fighting, I think when I was fighting him, he had like over 70 fights at
Yeah, I
that
mean
point.
Vernon White,
You
for
know,
people that don't know, he was a legit fighter from Lions
yeah.
Den, and he fought a lot. He did a lot of different matches.
He did Valley Tudos, bare
He did
knuckles in
Valley Tudo, which
Brazil.
which again, for people that don't remember, Valley Tudo and NHB are what they called this before it was MMA.
Yeah,
That's what they called it.
yeah.
The first pup magazine that I wrote for was called Valley Tudo News. Shout out to Eddie Goldman. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, nice.
And then I wrote for Valley Tudo News, and then I wrote for like another one that was NHB. I mean, I wrote for a lot of stuff that Eddie did, but there was another magazine I think for
Was it
NHB.
full? Did you write for Full Contact Fighter
Yeah,
ever?
I wrote for Full Contact Fighter. I wrote for Grappling. I wrote for a lot of different pubs back then. I was the first person to cover Annie Gracie, I think, in Maxim magazine back in the day. Christina Applegate was on the cover, and
Oh,
I
nice.
and then I did a story. I pitched him. I called Maxim, pitched the story on Half, and he did all the moves. And they had a photographer come by and take pictures of him and Dave. But then when the article was called Fist of Fury, but then when the magazine dropped, because Maxim was kind of like there was women and cars and money and
Yeah.
homes, but sometimes there was like frat house bullshit in the mag. You know what I'm saying? So like just silly shit. So dude, there was a picture of Half armbarring Dave, like explaining an armbar, but the caption said something like, "And now we sniff the undies."
That's too
And,
funny,
and
man.
so I call Half. I'm like, "Hey man, the mag's out. You should get it. I'll meet you at the academy." So I come
Yeah.
in,
And he's giving you the look, right?
and he's like, "Motherfucker, you write this
Yeah.
shit? This you?" I said, "Hey, listen, bro. Those guys are in fucking New York." I said, "Like, I'm not gonna write that, bro." And like,
Yeah.
like Dave was just kind of
I
like,
could just see you coming in and House look the look on his face, just
"How
like that
how
house
was
look.
he was hot?" And I was like, "Bro," I said, "I swear to God, I didn't know they were doing that, bro. Like, I train with you. Why would I?"
Yeah, you're not the editor or the publisher. You're just
Yeah.
submitting the
And they
article.
didn't show me like what it was gonna look like, in them days. They didn't get, okay, this is the final layout. So I didn't see shit. But like, it was a crazy time. I wrote for Maxim. I did the first article. I interviewed Alio after I started training with you guys. for Rap Pages magazine in 98. In
Oh
98.
wow,
And
nice.
I got to interview Elio was 86 at the time. I've talked about that a lot, but it was an amazing time to I that was the first time I understood the difference between lineages, right?
Yes.
Like I went there, I sparred with Hoist.
It's even crazier now that they put all those things out with and when the records got unsealed and the digital
Yeah.
library and all that stuff about there's a but everybody can talk about whatever the stories and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
the wrongdoings and the storytellings and all that stuff, but it doesn't still what it doesn't deny what jujitsu has become and
Come.
what it has done for so many people and how it's really affected the world. But you had asked me a question. We digressed. You asked me about the Vernon thing.
Yeah.
So I was shitting a brick because he had fought Mario Sperry, and even Mario Sperry didn't submit him. And
No
it was only
shit.
going to
Wait
be
a minute. I didn't know they fought.
yeah, look it up. He fought. They fought in this. It was a no in Australia. I think it was some Australian UF NHB
Yeah, yeah,
thing, and
yeah.
he fought Mario Sperry 30 or 35 minutes. Mario won, but he didn't even submit
Couldn't tap
Vernon.
him though, huh?
So yeah, so I was shitting a brick. But I just wanted to throw that out there because we had talked about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no doubt. Like it does the whole Brazilian archives being unsealed and hearing the stories and reading those stories is kind of crazy. Um, and letting you like know a little bit more about the different lineages, but also like the other Japanese guys that had come with my Ada and set up like I had never even heard of the FADA thing. And so
Yeah.
a black belt here had touched on that, but this was even pre that stuff coming out. And then knowing that all these other guys. And so it's almost like evolution, right? Like, like the diet, like T-Rexes like or dinosaurs didn't just start in one place. They were evolving and then became dinosaurs. Well, yes, the Gracies were a huge thing in jiu-jitsu and everything kind of spread out for them, but there were also these other little things
Yeah.
going on at the same time. And it's just it's interesting. And it just I think it gives it a more fuller and richer story. Maybe
No,
it
it
doesn't
does.
always have the best taste, right? Maybe
Yeah.
everybody doesn't like to to think about those things. But I think it just makes our history that much more interesting, you know?
Can you tell me about the day you got your black belt? One of the things I try to talk about is, and I sometimes forget because we have these great, hilarious, informative conversations, but I wanted to ask you about the day you got your black belt and like, how did you feel? Can you tell me about that day? Did you know it was coming? Like,
I
explain.
did. So this all came off of that thing we were just talking about, the title fight with Vernon White,
Mm.
because Dave was the jiu-jitsu coach at AKA, and he was in my corner for that fight. Him and Javier and Crazy Bob were in my corner, and so the fight happened, and it was a grueling fight that went the distance, 5 rounds, and so like I tried always to stay consistent in my training, but I took like a week off, and then I came back to the gym, and maybe it was Monday. We trained Monday and Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, we'd always have a little powwow at the end of the team practice where, Hob would say some, drop or Hob or Bob would drop words of wisdom or say something
Yeah.
motivational. So we were all doing that, and then we stopped, and everybody started to break, and then Hob was like, "Oh, wait a minute," and then all of a sudden, David was in the middle of the mat and he just pulled out the black belt and gave it to me. So I didn't expect it. I didn't even
Wow.
really feel I really didn't feel like I deserved it. I still feel like I suck
After
at
everything you
jujitsu.
had done up to that point, you talking
No,
about
I mean like
you
you
deserved
keep
it?
talking about how you used to suck as a white belt. I still think I suck. Like if I was to go train with these the competition black belts, these dudes, like they would be working me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like so I always feel like
You still might be wrong though, but I'm
I mean, I have knowledge and everything, but I've always been, jujitsu is all about application. So I can't do everything I used to do,
right.
and there's some of these new moves or these, which, again, I touched on that before we started rolling that, some of the new trends in jujitsu I'm not a fan of, but
Yeah.
we can't deny them. And our art is always evolving. And this is part of the new evolution. And, I think it's one of my pet peeves. Like most of these guys coming out, they can't fight. They
It's
can't really.
crazy, bro. That's a weird thing to see after all of this evolution that we talk about, right? Because
Yeah.
you like to think that the evolution of a thing, especially a fighting art, makes it more dangerous, more efficient. But there are a lot of ways I think in the gi and in no gi that people don't like to talk about that I don't think that's good for jujitsu. I think, some of that stuff works because you're not getting punched, works because
Exactly.
somebody's dropping an elbow or a knee into the back of your neck. But if they were, you'd be at risk.
And I don't think that that's the worst thing, but I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Like
Yeah.
over the years, I go to a lot of academies and I've been there where people are coming in for their first classes and things like that. And people are trying to show them how to invert before they even know how to shrimp or how to escape side control. And, I feel that obviously all of the modern techniques of jujitsu, the bolos, the more extravagant ways of getting to and exposing the legs, those are part of the art.
Yeah.
But I think it's a disservice to explain, to not differentiate, like this is something that you're doing in sport, this is something that you would be doing in self-defense, this is something that you're going to be doing in MMA. Because yes, MMA is going to, being an accomplished MMA fighter is going to make you very dangerous in one-on-one conversations, but that's not the same as street fighting. You know what I mean? It's the same
Yeah.
with boxers, right? The same with kickboxers. It's still not street fighting. You could be whooping somebody and they could pull out a knife. They
Yeah.
could
And
have
then
two or
that's
three
the game.
friends.
The
They,
game's different after that, homie.
yeah,
Like,
and so and I'm not saying that all of, that every school addresses multiple attackers and things like that, but I still think that as jujitsu, we need to stay with our roots of self defense and not totally digress from that and become what we're seeing in some of the modern jujitsu, which I mean, it's all cool. They're beautiful moves. I wish I was still limber enough to do some of the things like you mentioned, Mikey Musumeci. I
yeah.
watch that guy and I marvel at him. I marvel at the Meow brothers, but I just could never do a lot of the things that those guys are doing. I could never do that. And I think like 90% of the people doing jujitsu probably can't do a lot of those things either, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Now,
that's not knocking them. I mean,
yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah.
better.
No, no, no. I mean, no, dude, totally. One of the things that I think about these days, um, as a 55-year-old guy who's about to be 56 in February, if he can live that long,
Yeah.
is that when I see a lot of the really look, it looks cool, and I don't question that a lot of this stuff works, right? But the stuff that leans into flexibility, or even the stuff that leans into power, let's say the stuff that leans into speed, I don't hate on any of it because when I was 25, 26, 27, I had the flexibility and the speed and the power. But I find that as you evolve in age, what you learned as the fundamentals becomes the cornerstone of your future as an older grappler. And so, I tell people, look, there's two main trademarks to my fighting style. First is looks boring. I'm not going to be doing the upside down, spinning, whatever. Second is it's probably going to look like it don't work, but it does work because I learned from some of the best. And I worked on this stuff and I like the fact that it looks like it doesn't work because people don't recognize the threat that is actually on its route into
Yeah.
them, right? So, but like I feel like people think that they'll be able to berimbolo forever. They'll be able to pull their leg and put it behind their neck forever. And it's like, bro, when all of that stuff runs out, you know what you're gonna be doing? What I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Only if you learned it.
But
If you
you won't know
started
it. Exactly.
yeah,
You
but if
won't
you just
you won't
started by
know
putting
it.
your leg behind your neck, you're never going to understand this until, and you can be like, okay, I can't do jujitsu. You can, you just didn't learn jujitsu. You just learned how to put your leg behind
Yeah.
your neck.
And that's the thing, like I think that we lean a little bit away from our roots when people don't realize that if you really look at the story of jiu-jitsu and they talk about the Gracie brothers, especially Elio being the smallest and the least physically gifted, is that they tried to develop these techniques for people who didn't have the flexibility, who didn't have the speed, who didn't have the power.
Or
And now we're leaning more towards exploiting physical traits, which isn't that bad, right?
yeah,
Because I mean, jujitsu's become more dynamic. It's become more exciting, which is good for the sport because that's expanding it to the masses, right? And so it's helping the sport
totally.
grow. But we still need to stick with people need to learn how to defend themselves. You're
Bro.
not when some guy swings a fist at you in the bar, you're not going to like go for an Imanari roll. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Which is
And
the
hopefully
coolest
you
move
won't pull
ever.
guard.
Exactly, exactly. hopefully
You
you'll
won't pull
clinch,
guard.
you'll put him down and go on top, stay on top, and
Yeah.
either,
All that
make,
full and pass. You know what I'm
yep.
saying? Like, now you fought Vitor Belfort in Pride, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what was it like to go to Japan and fight?
That was crazy. It was one of the best experiences of my life, but also one of the most craziest because I probably wasn't ready. I mean, that was like my third or fourth fight, and I had like 2 weeks, 3 weeks notice to take that fight. And so, but it was like at that time, Pride was, I
Dude,
mean, Pride was here. The UFC wasn't the juggernaut that it is today. It's like everybody wanted to fight in Pride, right?
yo,
That was
if
where
you
everybody wanted to fight.
listen, guys, if you, everybody listening right now, please go into YouTube and put in Pride Space FC Japan. Just put it in, and you're going to see giants, killers of all sizes doing 10-minute rounds, bro. 10-minute rounds in stadiums with
That
explosive
was,
screens. I mean, like, it
it was
was really on, bro.
it was crazy because like there was like 30,000 people or something like that. There 40. I was like puking in the back. Like as
I
it got
can't
close, I was
imagine
like
that.
puking. I was so nervous. I thought I was okay. I was, "Are you okay? You don't look so good." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just getting focused." And then I fucking puking in
Who
this
was your
bucket.
corner for that match?
Same as always. I had Javier Mendez and Crazy Bob Cook. They went to Japan
Oh
with me.
my God, bro. I mean, dude, like, you have really lived the Warriors journey, man. Like, you've
Yeah.
really lived it, man. Like,
Oh, and
I'm,
it was crazy. Like we're sitting in the back, and they had like the card up in our dressing room, and there was
yeah.
like Vanderlei Silva, Sakuraba. I can't even Heath Herring. I'd have to go
Steve
back and
Herring was
look
a headhunter. He
who all the
used to
people
take them
were that were on
out.
that card. It was crazy. Vitor, obviously, I fought Vitor. I mean, there was like a really Igor Vorchenshin fought on that
Bull
card. Fucking
Chechen.
dude, it was crazy. It was like all of the biggest names of the sport at that time. At least there were maybe some bigger names in the UFC, but at that time,
Dude.
the biggest names, some of the biggest names that weren't in the UFC and
Yeah.
were bigger than some of the UFC stars were in that. That was when, what was that? I'm trying to remember if that was when, I'm trying to remember if that was when Vanderlei fought Sakuraba. I
Dude,
think it was when Vanderlei knocked
those
out
matches
Sakuraba
used to
was in
be
Pride 13.
bonkers.
It was
So, dude,
crazy.
I know you don't live in the Bay anymore, but if you used to take the Saratoga exit, okay, there was a Japanese grocery store. I don't even remember what it was called. I think it's still there. I'm gonna go look tomorrow. But there used to be this Japanese market, okay? So you would go into this Japanese market, and it was a regular grocery store, but it was all Japanese. It was pretty big, like a Safeway. And they had this one section on the left side, and it was like VHS and DVD. So one day I went in there, you know me, bro. I like green tea. I'm always trying to be on some Japanese Zen shit. So I'm walking around. I'm like, oh, they got a video section? And so I go in there, and then it's like, dramas, movies, shit you don't care about,
Yeah.
TV shows, porn, and then it said martial arts. And bro, all they were doing was recording Pride off television and dubbing it.
Oh,
So all the
wow.
commercials and everything was in it. It was just like whatever aired there was on this tape. And they had tapes and DVDs, bro, that they were just burning. And I would go there like every 2 weeks and I'd be like, I need 60. I would spend like $60 and I would get the craziest fights of Pride. And I loved that time of my life, bro. Like it was
Pride was crazy. Head stomps. As it got farther in, it got a little crazy with some of the matchups and everything. But in the early days of Pride, it was like just all. It was almost gloved NHB. You know what I mean? It was
bro,
close as you could get to the originals,
bro,
just with those little blue gloves.
bro. Do you remember when Bob Sapp fought Noguera, dog?
Yeah.
Or when Fedor fought Krokop? What a fight! I
What
mean,
about when Fedor fought Randleman?
ooh,
Remember when Randleman tried to do it and Fedor just rolled through and then came out and caught him in like an armbar or a kimura or something? I don't even remember. It was crazy.
I mean, it was such a crazy time. And so like, can I ask you, as one of the few true like people who really have like, you have walked the warrior's journey, you have done, seen, watched, and taught in some of the craziest, most real, legendary places on earth. At this phase of your life, honestly, like, win, lose, or draw, what does it feel like to have started before it was cool, brawled out at the Ultimate Fighter, Tough One, fought in Strike Force, fly to Japan, fight Vitor Belfort. You know, you got AKA in San Antonio at this point. What does it have any more or less meaning? What wisdom do you come from it? Do you have any regrets? Do you have any like? Because you're
You
really
know,
that guy, bro.
well, there's a lot of regrets. I mean, there's things I shouldn't have done, things I shouldn't have said, but that's all part of the journey, right? And all I'm trying to do now is just pass what I've learned from all those experiences down and try to teach people the best jujitsu that I can. Like I try to tell everybody, like I'm not the best instructor, but the stuff that I know is it's legit. And I can, if you just, I try to tell these guys, you teach and
Yeah.
I'm sure you get resistance from the students, right? It's like you're
Oh
trying to
yeah.
get them, and it's like I'm like sitting here. If I had hair, I'd be pulling it out, going, "I've told you this 20 times. All you have to do is shrimp. All you have to
Put
put
your
your
foot
hand
on
here.
the
All,
hip and
put your do
turn.
this, right?" And it's like, and then you're bitching. When am I going to get a stripe? When am I going to get a belt? You know what I mean? But it's you're
Dog,
not doing what you're being taught,
dude.
which is the
So
hardest part about jujitsu. And this is the thing you were asking me earlier, what I think about promoting and stuff like that. And this is what I think about promoting. I tell them, I don't give a shit if you can give me the perfect explanation of how to do a scissor sweep or how to do an arm bar, or if you have a yuki and you can show me how to do those moves. I care with success or failure if you recognize the situation during live rolling and try to apply the scissor sweep at the proper time, or try to attack the exposed arm or the exposed back or the
yeah,
exposed neck. That is what is indicative of your level of skill. You know what I mean? And
that's
so,
real.
and it's like I don't promote. There are certain, like I don't expect a white belt to like see every you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I
You're not
but
you're
at
not holding them to the yeah.
the highest of standards, but at every level, for you to progress to the first stripe, the second stripe, to your blue belt, to your, you know what I'm saying? It's like there are certain things that we're looking for at each of these levels that revolve around those concepts. You know what I mean? That it's what's about your awareness, your vision, and your mental state. Because the guys that are freaking out at any belt level, because we all everybody looks at me and they think I'm always calm when I'm rolling, and yeah, it looks that way. But I try to explain to them, you're a blue belt, and you're 200 pounds, I'm 240 pounds, and I'm rolling with you. If I was rolling with a 240-pound black belt, 20-year-old, 25-year-old black belt competitor, you would be seeing me freaking out a little bit. And at every level, we
Be a
all
little
we're,
different.
we're it'd be a little bit different, but at the same time, what's indicative of your level of jujitsu is the presence of mind, even when you're in a high stress environment or a high stress situation, to be able to recognize and at least attempt to apply the proper techniques for the situation that you're in. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that's what I try to explain to them. And it's not the highest of standards, but there are standards. And I
Yeah,
and
and
I
you
tell
need
them,
to be able to meet them. You're right. You
yeah,
need to be able to meet them and know you can. Like
yeah,
really know you can. And like one difference that I give jujitsu to a lot of other fighting styles, and one difference that I give MMA itself, whether it's gi or no gi jujitsu or MMA, is that at the end of the day, no matter what you say, we need to see you do it
exactly. It's all, and
against
that's
an
those
unwilling
are the roots of
unwilling
jujitsu.
opponent.
Yes, it's about the application, right? If otherwise it would be
Yeah.
kata. It's all
Yeah.
because that's I try to explain to them that when we're drilling technique, this is the kata of jujitsu, right? You doing an armbar, you doing a triangle. It's no different than the guy doing his
Yeah.
reverse punch. I mean, I don't do karate, so I
Yeah, I
don't,
know what you're
but
saying though. For real though.
but when you're rolling live or you're competing live or heaven forbid, you're defending yourself, that's when it matters. And what you do in those situations matters. Anything else, it doesn't matter. So, the other thing I tell them is like, you went to school, right? Obviously, everybody's going to say, yeah. And I tell
Yeah.
them, do you get an A for showing up? It's like, you don't get an A for showing up in school. It's like the people who know the material, who can
Yeah, who
apply
do
the
the
material,
work
who
and
can
pass the
pass
test.
the test. Our test is just, this guy's trying to choke you. He's trying to mount you. He's trying to pass your guard. Those are the tests you have to
Don't get
pass.
arm barred,
It's not
right?
2 + 2 = 4, right? It's
No, man. Listen, Bobby, man, let me just say thank you for teaching me in those days at Half Gracie. Thank you for um making me a better man along with everybody else on the team and living the example of what it means to walk the warrior's path because few people will ever live a fraction of what you have. And I'm grateful that we got this time because we've known each other for so long. We've been cool for so many years. We haven't seen each other forever, but
been
I
a
want
minute,
you
yeah.
to know that like you know I wrote this thing in Genzai magazine. Actually, let me show you Genzai. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. So Genzai is a publication that Halleck Gracie put together, and it was originally just an online thing. But recently, if you go to Amazon, you can buy this. Now it's expensive because it's a very
Let me
slow
take a
run.
little screenshot of this real quick.
I'll send you pictures. I'll send you pictures. I'll
Okay.
send you
Okay.
pictures. But in this thing, I was lucky enough to write an essay, and they have stuff on like in Japan, like looking at sumo. Like it's not just a jujitsu thing. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
not like they have a whole thing that's on sumo, and they're in Japan. You know what I mean? Like really looking at it. They have things on all kinds of different styles. They have thing on catch wrestling. I think in here, like, and they're not playing, like they look at a lot of stuff. But anyway, I was able to write a thing. Let me see if I can even find the page on it. 87. So on 87, I wrote a piece called uh The Blood in Your Belt. Right? That
Mm,
when you get a black belt, right? Part of what's in that black belt is the blood of all the other people that fought before you that made the knowledge possible, right? And I have to say, um, you are absolutely, unquestionably someone who donated some blood to my belt because I wouldn't know it. I wouldn't know it, brother. I wouldn't know it. And you were a great example to me then. I consider you a great example to me now, man. So I just want to
well,
say thank you. I
no,
just
thank you, man. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast, and I'm truly humbled to know, and I'm happy if I've even helped a fraction of a little bit in your journey in jujitsu and life. It's very humbling, and thank you for telling me that. Much love, man. I truly appreciate it, Adisa. And send me if you can send me a copy of that article.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
wanna, yeah.
I will I'll make sure I do. And how can people get a hold of you? And if people want to come train with you in San Antonio, like how do they do it?
Look, hit me up. You can find me on Instagram at the Real B South on Instagram, Facebook.com/Bobby Southworth. We're here in San Antonio, aka SanAntonio.com. If you're in town, come check us out. We're doing Thai boxing and jujitsu, and we're here, man. I mean, I'm not the best. I like teaching. I'm not the best at business. I'm not the best marketing talking guy. That's probably why I'm not falling out of the Lamborghini, like you said earlier.
Ah,
But I'm just trying to live the life and pass on the knowledge. And you know, um, I wouldn't have it. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way except maybe to have a little bit more money in the bank. But
sure, for
no
sure,
complaints. No complaints,
sure.
brother.
You know, just man, yo, y'all, follow this dude. If you're in San Antonio, go train with this dude. He's one of the realest. He's one of the realest to ever do this. And
Thank you, Adisa. Thank you.
dude, thank you for being on Bishop Chronicles, and yeah, appreciate you, man. All right,
Sure.
thank you, viewers, watchers, listeners, and I'm not playing in 26. You see, I'm coming and kicking everybody in the face, man. And on that last one, I did an audio thing on the Dagestanis. Like, don't sleep on that one. Also, like right before the end of the year, I got Hiron Gracie and then Alan Sanchez from 10th Planet on. So,
Nice.
don't sleep, soak this up, and I hope this inspires you to be a better you, right? I hope this inspires you to be a better you. We're out of here.
All right, man.